Tonight, breaking news, a child injured in that deadly parade rampage in Waukesha has now died, bringing the death toll to 6, with dozens more injured. The suspect, 39-year-old Darrell Brooks, making his first court appearance. He's now facing multiple counts of intentional homicide for allegedly driving his SUV through the city's Christmas parade. A doorbell cam capturing Brooks just moments before police moved in. And tonight, the family that lost their child dealing with another who is still recovering. The devastated community tonight gathering for another vigil. Also tonight, jury deliberations are underway in the trial of 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery after prosecutors gave a nearly 2-hour rebuttal, arguing the 3 defendants have no right to claim self-defense when they started the deadly confrontation. Will we get a jury decision before Thanksgiving? Easing the oil crisis, President Biden has ordered the release of 50 million barrels of oil to help fighting surging gas prices. But how soon will drivers see a change at the pump as millions of Americans hit the road for the busiest travel week of the year? Plus, Brian Laundrie's cause of death, a medical examiner revealing he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, bringing the Gabby Potito case to a dramatic end. What his family is saying tonight. The major bill for Kevin Spacey, why the disgraced actor is being ordered to pay nearly $31 million to the studio behind House of Cards years after he was fired from the show. Hey, good evening. I'm Tom Llamas. We begin top story tonight with breaking news. The death toll in that deadly parade rampage in Waukesha has risen to 6 after an 8-year-old boy tragically died from his injuries. The suspect, 39-year-old Darrell Brooks of Wisconsin, you see him right there, making his first court appearance. He's facing 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, but a 6th is expected to be added. His bail set at $5 million. He's accused of driving his SUV through the city's Christmas parade, striking and killing people. New video showing him ramming through barriers and narrowly missing participants. A doorbell cam captured him asking a homeowner to call him an Uber shortly after the rampage and right before police moved in. Authorities say he is a career criminal who was released on bail for allegedly running over his ex-girlfriend earlier this month. The heartbroken community, who should be preparing for Thanksgiving, now gathering for a vigil for the second night, remembering the 6 killed and more than 60 injured. Let's get right to Megan Fitzgerald, who leads us off from Waukesha.
Tonight, the man at the center of a horrific tragedy in Waukesha, Wisconsin, appearing before a judge for the first time.
This is case number 21CF.
39-year-old Darrell Brooks charged with 5 counts of intentional homicide after allegedly plowing through a Christmas parade Sunday evening, killing 5 people, injuring 62 others. And tonight, the prosecutor saying more charges are pending after the confirmation of a 6th death, an 8-year-old boy. New images from a doorbell camera a short distance from the parade route appear to show Brooks asking a homeowner to call an Uber.
Can you call it for me, please? I'm homeless.
Not long after, police moving in moments before making an arrest. Court documents show Brooks has a decades-long criminal history, including arrests for sexual abuse, drugs, battery, and domestic violence. Just this month, he was arrested for allegedly running over his child's mother, but was released from jail just days ago after posting a $1,000 bond.
It's clearly a breakdown in the criminal justice system to release a man with his record on $1,000 bail.
5 dead, ranging from 52 to 81 years old. 3 of the victims, Virginia Sorensen, known as Ginny, Leanna Owen, and Tamara Durand, all members of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies who marched in Sunday's parade. Wilhelm Hospital died while walking alongside them, carrying cups of ice. Dozens more injured Sunday, including 18 kids rushed to Children's Hospital. 10 remain in ICU, while the trauma of that day is setting in.
People screaming everywhere, panic, we just took off running.
Taylor Medrano was at the parade with her 1-year-old son and witnessed the horror. Could you feel the car zooming past?
It was like a brush of wind. You had all those kids, it was like they weren't even there.
We are all Waukesha.
A devastated community finding comfort in grieving together.
Megan joins us now live outside that courthouse there in Waukesha. So, Megan, I have to ask you, now that this child has died, this community was already reeling from all the other people that had died, all the misery, and now this has happened as well. What more can you tell us about how that community is doing tonight?
Well, Tom, you know, we had an opportunity to speak with members of this community, and they are broken. They are filled with tears. I spoke with one woman who told me that she didn't know anyone connected to this tragedy, but because her community is hurting, she is hurting too. She feels helpless and wants to do everything she can to try and help this community move forward and to try and heal. Tom?
Megan Fitzgerald for us tonight. Megan, thank you. The other major headline tonight, a Georgia jury now deliberating in the trial over the death of Ahmaud Arbery. 3 men's fate now in the hands of 12 jurors after prosecutors made their rebuttal this morning. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is in Georgia for us tonight.
For the family and friends of Ahmaud Arbery, after months of agony, the jury in this case now deliberating.
I do think that we will come back with a guilty verdict. We will get justice for Ahmaud.
At points during the prosecution's rebuttal, graphic photographs of the crime scene causing Ahmaud Arbery's mom to cover her face. 3 men in this case face 9 charges, including aggravated assault and murder with malice aforethought, which can be formed in an instant.
It has nothing to do with anger or hatred for a person. Instead, it deals exclusively with the concept of intent. Intent to kill, intent to cause serious bodily harm.
The prosecutor telling the jury a self-defense claim cannot apply when you create the danger and confronts an unarmed victim.
This isn't the Wild West. He moved toward Mr. Arbery with the gun.
A message they hope sticks with the jury.
What's potentially the power of these last 2 hours being the final thing the jury will hear before they start deliberating?
She has a fresh jury. The jury has had all the evidence, and so it's great that right before they go into deliberation, they'll be hearing from the prosecution, making their case, and hopefully getting a conviction.
Throughout the trial, the defense staking its case on a series of neighborhood burglaries. They say the 3 defendants were trying to peacefully confront a man they believed was at least trespassing.
These are real experiences of real people who were very scared. And so they took it upon themselves to do something about it.
Now, the fates of 3 men and the families devastated by their actions hanging in the balance.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now live from Georgia. So, Sam, the jury is done deliberating for the day. So many across the country are watching this trial. They've been watching every single day. The Thanksgiving holiday is coming up. How is that going to conflict with the jury's deliberations?
Tom, originally the thought was that the jurors might leave early for the holiday, though we found out from the sheriff's office that they have now the discretion, if you will, to deliberate throughout the course of the week. That means Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday if necessary. But it might not take as long as we once thought, because the judge tonight said, I want to find out whether or not the jurors are imminently about to make a verdict and then ask if they want to extend the night. The jurors opted to extend the night and then 20 minutes later adjourned for the evening. They are back at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Tom?
All right, an interesting development there. Sam Brock there with that new reporting. Sam, thank you. We want to talk more about this trial right now. So joining us with legal analysis as jury deliberations continue tomorrow, attorney Angela Senadella has been following this case, and she joins Top Story tonight. So, I want to start where the prosecution left off, right? They had their rebuttal, and they basically said that self-defense, citizen's arrest, that didn't happen in this case.
It's true. They really didn't. So the prosecution's charges of murder, those can only be countered by self-defense, and the rest of the charges would be countered by citizen's arrest. So self-defense in this case does not apply because he was being chased. He was not doing the chasing, as shown with all the video. And then with citizen's arrest, it's the same thing. The defense veered away from the law and tried to confuse the jury by claiming the standard is probable cause, but it's not. The standard is actually whether or not they were immediately in the presence of a crime being committed or they had immediate knowledge of it, which they didn't.
The prosecutor said something interesting, and I want to read from the quote here. They said they made their decision to attack Ahmaud Arbery, talking about the defendants, in their driveways because he was a black man running down the street. It was one of the only times in this case we've heard about race. Why did they do that?
Why did they talk about it at all?
The prosecution, yeah. Why only mention it once like that?
Because they believed in the strength of their case without even proving racism. So racism in this case would be a motive, but prosecution is not required to prove the motive. They're only required here to prove that these 3 defendants are guilty across 9 charges. Also, race is always extremely explosive and unpredictable. They don't know how the jury would react when they bring up race. They can only make assumptions. So they chose the safe course here because they think they're going to win.
You have 3 defendants here. How do you think this ends up for each one?
I think it's pretty clearly that two of them are going to be considered guilty.
The McMichaels, the father and son?
Yes, exactly. I think the third could be considered for a reduced charge, which is what the judge offered, and only to Roddy did they allow this, the reduction to simple assault or to reckless driving.
The man who shot the video.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then finally, we heard Sam Brock's new reporting there. It sounds, I mean, we can't read the tea leaves too much, but it sounds like they may be getting close this fast. Does that tell you anything about the jury?
It does. It tells you that it's possible that we could get a verdict soon. And in general, though, that does usually go towards acquittals. But in this case, you never really know.
Okay. Angela Senadella again for us tonight on Top Story. Angela, we always thank you for your time. Thank you. We turn now to the holiday travel rush with millions of people expected to hit the road this week. The Biden administration taking the rare step of releasing oil from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve in an effort to help drive down the highest gas prices since Thanksgiving 2013. Tom Costello reports.
It's the largest release ever of the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or the SPR. The president tapping 50 million barrels, hoping to drive down prices at the pump.
It will take time, but before long, you should see the price of gas drop where you fill up your tank.
But 50 million barrels is roughly the equivalent of what Americans go through every 2.5 days. The SPR is normally reserved for emergencies like wars or hurricanes that disrupt the national supply. This is the first major release for a non-emergency. The United States coordinating a global response to rising fuel prices, partnering with India, Japan, South Korea, the United Kingdom, and China to also release more oil, hoping to force OPEC to pump more to meet demand.
Critics are going to charge the president with making more of a political than an economic move because a move of this size is unlikely to help oil and gas prices in the long term.
Unleaded is now averaging $3.40 a gallon. A year ago, it was $2.10 during the economic slowdown. If you're driving from here in Tampa to Atlanta, that's 456 miles. The typical car averages 25 miles to the gallon. So a year ago, you would have paid $38 in gas. Today, $62.
They are really high, and what can we do, hang in there.
The president accuses the oil and gas industry of price gouging Americans, just as 48 million are driving over Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, across the country today, mostly clear skies and packed airports. The TSA screening more than 2 million people each day since Friday, the highest since the pandemic began. Sunday will bring the most passengers yet. And today, the TSA chief tells NBC News 93% of screening officers are now vaccinated. Those who aren't will not face immediate termination.
No, we aren't going to pull any unvaccinated people off the line. And I expect to have no impact whatsoever for Thanksgiving travel or through December for the travel periods there.
Welcome news as many families gather for their first Thanksgiving in 2 years.
Tom has been traveling the country for us this week. He joins us now from Tampa. Tom, I want you to explain to our viewers, I know this is not the highest gas prices have ever been in the U.S., but it comes at a really tough time for the American consumer.
No, that's right. Listen, back in 2008, we were paying $4.11 on average compared to what we're paying now, $3.40 or so. And listen, in some parts of the country back in 2008, it was over $5 a gallon, California especially. But listen, that doesn't negate the pain right now. We've got a lot of people who, for every dollar that they have to pour into their gas tank, they're not buying groceries, right? They're not buying maybe clothing for the kids. They're not buying presents for the holidays. So this is real pain at the pump, and that's why the president is acting.
All right, Tom Costello for us. Tom, thank you. We want to turn now to the pandemic and the race for some Americans to get boosted ahead of the holidays. Millions are on the move amid a spike in COVID cases in more than half the country. Many are taking precautions, including getting home test kits. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has those details.
Relax, relax, relax.
Tonight, the race to vaccinate hitting new benchmarks, just as travel begins to surge and new infections start to mount. For 3 weeks, average inoculations have topped more than 1 million a day for the first time since spring. And now it's booster shots making up the majority of jabs, with Thanksgiving and family gatherings 2 days away.
Not only do boosters work, they work even better than the peak dose, the peak response after the second dose.
It comes just as new infections and hospitalizations climb nationwide, pushing some ERs back to the brink all over again. But despite the troubling trend, Dr. Tyson Bell says there are ways to protect your family for the holidays.
For my family, everyone who's eligible, who's gathering, is going to be vaccinated. I'm having a smaller gathering than I would normally have, so about 5 or 6 adults. And everyone's taking a rapid test before they come.
While PCR tests remain the most accurate, fairly inexpensive and easy to use at-home test kits can provide another layer of protection, with the White House spending $3 billion to quadruple supply from September to December. Major pharmacies tell NBC News demand has been high for weeks.
The rapid tests are not the gold standard. They're not perfect, but I think they're a really good layer to add to the other measures that you're doing to try to keep people safe.
Tonight for Dr. Bell and families nationwide, moving from virtual to personal, a way to safely gather just in time for the holidays.
And we're all looking forward towards Thanksgiving. Miguel joins us now live. Miguel, there's been a lot of discussion over how long boosters take to kick in. What does the data tell us from Pfizer?
Well, Tom, the latest data from Pfizer says that that booster shot gives you full immunity about a week after you get it, but they say you can start getting the benefits about 48 hours. So they say get that booster shot as soon as you can qualify. Tom.
All right, Miguel, we thank you for that. In Washington, the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection has issued yet another round of subpoenas. The panel says they are seeking information from several far-right groups, including the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, who reportedly helped either plan the riot or tried to overturn election results. It comes as the Department of Justice released new video evidence showing protesters, take a look at this, violently entering through 2 garage doors at the Capitol on January 6th. The rioters seen throwing chairs and garbage cans at officers who were trying to stop them, the group eventually making their way inside. Now to another major headline. Elizabeth Holmes back on the stand today. The Theranos founder continuing testimony for the second day in the closely watched fraud trial over her failed blood testing startup. Holmes telling the prosecution about her role in scientific studies they say she used to defraud investors and partners. We're joined now by CNBC's Scott Cohn outside the courthouse in San Jose. He's been covering this case for Top Story along with CNBC. So, Scott, what did Holmes testify her role was in these scientific studies?
Yeah, this was one of the kind of jaw-dropping moments in the prosecution's case, that there was this study talking about the merits of Theranos' technology. It was shared, as you said, with business partners and investors. And at the top of the study is the Theranos logo and the logo of in one instance, Pfizer, and in another instance, Schering-Plough. So who put on that logo that the drug company said they had nothing to do with those studies? Well, Elizabeth Holmes testified that she did it. She said that she did it because she wanted to convey the fact that the company was working with those drug companies in partnership to do those studies, not to falsely claim, as investors took it to mean, that Pfizer and Schering-Plough were endorsing the Theranos technology. She said today on the witness stand that, yeah, she would have done it differently if she had it to do over again.
And Scott, I know something else sort of strange happened in court today. Holmes explaining to the jurors how the Theranos technology worked, while the defense, her defense, we should mention, has been arguing that she relied on others to tell her how it operated. So is she trying to have it both ways?
Well, in a sense, but I think what she's trying to say is that, and trying to rebut the claim by the prosecution, that she was pressuring scientists and others to get this stuff done before it even worked. She said that she never did that, and that she did rely on scientists to validate lab studies and things like that. You know, the undercurrent in this whole case, and things that we're really starting to learn now, is that when she was becoming a media darling and a Wall Street darling around 2013, this company was facing a lot of difficulties that we didn't know about. And that may not be what the defense wants to get out there, but they do want to say that she was an inexperienced executive. She got enthusiastic about this idea. It failed, but failure, as they say, is not a crime.
And Scott, you know, we sort of have this picture, right, of Elizabeth Holmes that we saw in publication after publication, and yet we're sort of seeing a different type of person during this case. How has the defense worked to paint Holmes as a person in the course of this trial rather than the corporate titan CEO that made so many headlines?
Well, I mean, the questioning is friendly. Kevin Downey is her attorney, and clearly, you know, she knows what to expect. But she's very confident on the witness stand. She's authoritative. She sometimes addresses the jury directly and speaks in very understandable terms. In some ways, it actually is the same skill that she was able to use to raise hundreds of millions of dollars from some sophisticated investors. We'll see how this goes as things continue to play out today. Of course, the different Elizabeth Holmes that we might see comes when cross-examination happens. That's now likely to happen next week. The government's going to have a lot of questions to ask in response to the things that she said on the stand for about an hour on Friday, a couple hours yesterday, and now all day long today.
CNBC's Scott Cohn for us tonight. Scott, we thank you for that. All right, now to an update in the Gabby Potito case. A medical examiner revealing her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound nearly a month after his remains were found. NBC's Kathy Park has that story.
Never goes outside. Tonight, a new revelation in the Gabby Potito saga. Roughly a month after her fiancé's remains were found in a Florida nature reserve, the medical examiner said Brian Laundrie died from a gunshot wound to the head, and his manner of death was suicide. The Laundrie family attorney releasing a statement writing in part, Chris and Roberta are still mourning the loss of their son and are hopeful that these findings bring closure to both families. Laundrie was named a person of interest in Potito's disappearance, whose body was later found near a campsite in Wyoming. The coroner announced a 22-year-old was strangled to death. Their story captivated the nation.
I love the band.
The pair had been on a cross-country road trip chronicling their journey before Laundrie returned home to Florida alone. Shortly after Potito was reported missing by family, Laundrie vanished too. Body cam footage released by Moab police revealed a domestic dispute between Potito and Laundrie before she went missing. The footage shows an officer questioning Potito after police pulled over the couple's van.
I slapped him.
You slapped him first, and then just on his face?
You have to kind of just shut up.
The FBI led a weeks-long manhunt for Laundrie before his remains were found in the Florida wetlands. The Laundrie family lawyer Steve Bertolino spoke with Top Story the day his remains were identified.
Did your clients know their son, Brian Laundrie, was going to disappear when he left the house that day?
No, they did not. What I can tell you is that Brian was very upset when he left.
Potito's family had previously called out the Laundrie family directly.
Anyone that lived in that house is a coward, and they don't know how to stand up for their actions.
Telling Dr. Phil they believe the Laundries were withholding information.
Somebody needs to start talking. I do believe they know a lot more information than they're putting out there.
There are still questions as to how Laundrie's remains were found.
What do you say to all those people out there who say this is really a strange coincidence? Both parents go out, mother and father, and then suddenly these big clues turn up, including what we now know are the remains of Brian Laundrie.
This area was waist deep in water. I think every searcher who was out there will attest to that. And yet still, John Q. Public can't get it in their head that these areas were inaccessible and the items that were located perhaps couldn't be seen.
NBC News reached out to the Laundrie family attorney for comment, but he's declining all interviews at this time.
All right, Kathy joins us now in studio. And Kathy, we should remind viewers that some of Brian's belongings, like his notebook, were found near his remains, and they could hold more clues.
Yeah, that certainly is the hope. So the FBI, they're still the lead investigating agency on this case, and they're trying to piece together this notebook. But keep in mind, it was underwater for quite some time, so they still have a lot of work to do. But yeah, it could hold some critical clues and perhaps explain how this tragedy unfolded.
And as far as the timeline here, when Brian died, that we still don't know.
Correct. That we don't know. We do know October 20th is when his remains were found. He was ID'd the following day, but the full autopsy is still pending, but we should know in a couple of days.
Okay, Kathy Park for us tonight. Kathy, we thank you for that. Turning now to a new court ruling. Kevin Spacey has to pay up, apparently. It's been 4 years since a series of sexual misconduct allegations were made against the actor. The fallout leading the writers of his hit Netflix show, House of Cards, to frantically write him out of the show's final season in the middle of taping. Tonight, Spacey owes the studio millions as a result. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard has the latest.
In the end, I don't care whether you love me or you hate me, just as long as I win.
Tonight, Kevin Spacey's alleged sexual misconduct is now costing him more than just his career. An arbitrator ruling on Monday that he must pay more than $30 million to the studio that produced House of Cards. An arbitrator delivering the final decision to a judge, writing, Spacey's egregious conduct on the set of House of Cards and the revelations of that conduct in the midst of production of season 6 caused MRC to suffer substantial losses.
That was through arbitration and alternative dispute resolution, which means there are very few avenues for appeal. This is a real number that has to be paid.
The serious allegations against Spacey reported in the fall of 2017 during the filming of the hit Netflix show. The ruling noting the show's writers and producers had to scrap all of the development of the 6 season's episodes and rewrite in just a handful of weeks an entire season of the show, omitting Spacey's character. That season also shortened from 13 episodes down to just 8. It would be House of Cards last.
Outside of just this one ruling even, does a decision like this help set a precedent for other future misconduct?
It does appear to set a kind of precedent, a warning to actors or other producers on a movie or film set who might violate sexual harassment policies and procedures.
The studio saying in a statement, the safety of our employees, sets, and work environments is of paramount importance to MRC and why we set out to push for accountability. Attorneys for Spacey did not return NBC News requests for comment. Spacey faced a series of sexual misconduct allegations around the time of his removal from the show, though he has not stood trial on any criminal charges stemming from any of the allegations. A prosecutor in 2019 dropped charges against him in one case after the accuser did not agree to testify. Spacey is facing a civil suit from Anthony Rapp, an actor and the first man to open the floodgates of allegations against Spacey in 2017, telling BuzzFeed that when he was just 14 years old, Spacey put him on a bed and climbed on top of him. Spacey, in a statement after the claim was made, said he did not remember the incident, but apologized, in his words, if he did behave then as he describes.
Conclusions can be so deceiving.
Spacey no longer appearing in major productions, instead putting out short videos on YouTube each of the last 3 Christmas Eves, twice playing his old House of Cards character, Frank Underwood.
You didn't really think I was going to miss the opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas, did you?
All right, Vaughn joins us now in studio. So, Vaughn, we know that a lot of this happened during that arbitration process, which can be secretive. But now with this public decision, what more are we learning?
Exactly. The arbitrator focused heavily on what actually happened on the set of House of Cards here. There were 20 individuals, 20 witnesses that were deposed as part of this process here, including members of the crew. Now, Spacey's team argued that he never, in fact, breached any of his contractual obligations. But the arbitrator made it clear, writing, quote, repeatedly breached his contractual obligations, citing, quote, certain conduct with several crew members over the course of each of the 5 seasons he starred in. This arbitrator's decision now just awaits the final expected sign-off from a judge.
Okay, Vaughn, thank you. Still ahead tonight, the deadly home explosion, at least 2 people killed, including a child, and dozens of homes damaged. The investigation now underway. Plus, another smash-and-grab robbery. Thieves targeting a popular shopping center in Los Angeles after a string of similar crimes. How authorities believe the groups are organizing. And JayZ making history. The latest feat for the rapper after raking in 3 more Grammy nominations. Stay with us. Top story, just getting started. Back now with a disturbing trend we've been following. Yet another smash-and-grab robbery reported last night. This one at a high-end shopping center in Los Angeles. Tonight, law enforcement telling us what they think could be driving this troubling crime wave. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is in L.A. for us.
Tonight, Los Angeles, the latest city, left reeling from a wave of highly coordinated smash-and-grab robberies across the state.
We're going to try to go right in here.
Police say a group of at least 20 thieves shattered store windows at the Grove Shopping Center last night using sledgehammers and an e-bike, leaving more than $15,000 worth of damage in its wake and stealing more than $5,000 worth of merchandise. A witness recording this video appearing to show several people climbing through the broken window. The suspects fleeing in several vehicles, one of them leading police on a car chase through suburban L.A. That pursuit ending with 3 suspects taken into custody.
Get on the sidewalk! Get on the sidewalk!
The incident, the latest in the string of troubling robberies across the state. In San Francisco's Union Square, shoplifting crews targeting high-end stores like Louis Vuitton and Fendi. police smashing in car windows to stop them from getting away. And in suburban Walnut Creek, a mob that police called highly organized, swarming a Nordstrom. And it's not just high-end retail stores that are being targeted. Earlier this year, Walgreens said a string of robberies forced the pharmacy chain to close 5 of its locations in San Francisco.
This is metastasized here in California to where it's not just a random thing or a small level organized crime doing it. This is a symptom of a much bigger problem of a lack of accountability for property crimes.
Law enforcement has pointed to a change in California law that raised the threshold for felony theft from $450 to $950, and the fact that punishments for these crimes are relatively small as potential factors for the latest wave.
How frustrating is that from a law enforcement and justice perspective?
Well, it's incredibly frustrating because what we know is it's a relatively small number of people who commit these types of crimes over and over again. And they have learned that because of the changes in the law in the state of California, there is no consequence for their actions or very little consequence for their actions.
California Governor Gavin Newsom, who reinstated a retail theft task force in July, admitting his state needs to do more.
We want real accountability. We want people prosecuted, and we want people to feel safe this holiday season. I have no empathy, no sympathy for these folks, and they must be held to account.
In response to last night's incident, the LAPD announcing it will send extra officers to patrol the area. Yellow wire barricades already installed around the shopping center's perimeter. With the holiday shopping season just getting started, law enforcement remains on high alert.
All right, Steve Patterson joins us now live from Los Angeles again. And Steve, we spoke about this last night. These groups are clearly organized, as we heard in your report there. These aren't random attacks. So how do officials in California think these sprees are being planned and happening?
Tom, officials, including several mayors and law enforcement officers, are citing one thing: social media, saying it is the primary way these flash mob style groups are organizing, the way they're meeting and getting inspiration from the attacks they're now seeing every night. But there is some breaking news. Just moments ago, the district attorney announcing charges for 9 suspects in that Union Square incident on Friday night, and they promise there are more arrests to come. Tom?
All right, Steve Patterson with that breaking news tonight. Steve, we thank you. When we come back, the deadly bus crash overseas, nearly 50 tourists killed, including children, how the sole survivors managed to climb out of the burning wreckage, and finally free the wrongfully convicted man released from prison after more than 4 decades. What he told reporters moments after his long-awaited release. Stay with us. All right, back down to Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with the deadly home explosion in Michigan. Authorities say the blast in Flint damaged more than 30 homes and left at least 2 people dead, including a 4-year-old child. 2 other people remain hospitalized. Multiple residents have had their utilities turned off as authorities investigate the cause of that explosion. A federal jury found 3 of the nation's largest pharmacy chains contributed to the opioid crisis in 2 Ohio counties. In the first of its kind ruling, the jury concluding that CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart recklessly distributed massive amounts of pain pills in Lake and Trumbull counties, which caused hundreds of overdose deaths and cost the counties each about $1 billion. A judge will determine the damages. A wrongfully convicted man has been released from prison after 43 years. 62-year-old Kevin Strickland seen leaving the Western Missouri Correctional Facility today after he was exonerated for a 1978 triple murder. It's the longest wrongful conviction case in Missouri's history and one of the longest in U.S. history. An all-white jury sentenced Strickland to life, even though no physical evidence linked him to the crime scene, and the admitted killer said he was not there. Strickland telling reporters he's thankful for everyone who believed in his innocence. And JayZ is now the most nominated artist in Grammy Awards history. His 3 nominations today pushing him to 83 nods overall, surpassing the great Quincy Jones, who had been tied with 80. The rapper has won 23 Grammys during his career, and his wife Beyonce is the most nominated woman in the award show's history. All right, we want to turn now to Kyle Rittenhouse, speaking out for the first time since last week's not guilty verdict. What he said about the controversy over his case, the Black Lives Matter movement, and even President Biden. Maura Barrett has more.
I've never seen something so polarizing in my life when it's obvious self-defense.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle
Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Kyle Rittenhouse reflecting on his acquittal for the first time publicly in what can be described as a sympathetic conversation with Fox News' Tucker Carlson. Rittenhouse laying out his side of last summer's dramatic events.
You don't seem like someone who's just been through, had his mind blown.
Yeah, on the inside I'm freaking out, but the best thing you can do, you freak out, everybody else freaks out. It's like a chain reaction.
Yes.
So the best thing I can do is stay calm.
Discussing when he brought an AR-15 to Kenosha protests and riots last summer, he says to protect businesses and clean graffiti, and ultimately where he shot and killed 2 people and injured another.
This has been 100% self-defense from the beginning, and I didn't know there was 100 cameras. But I did know I was attacked, and I defended myself.
He said he agrees with the BLM movement and the right to protest.
But I do not agree that people have the right to burn down. I don't appreciate that people are burning down American cities to try to spread their message. I think there's other ways to go around and do that.
Well, I agree with that completely.
We saw in Kenosha.
Rittenhouse also criticizing President Biden for including his photo in a 2020 campaign ad, which called out Trump for not condemning white supremacists and militias.
Mr. President, if I could say one thing to you, I would urge you to go back and watch the trial and understand the facts before you make a statement.
Your lawyer said you were in a militia?
John Pierce said that, and it's blatantly false. I didn't know what a militia was until after the fact, until November 25th, after I was watching some of the interviews he did. I was like, I'm not in a militia. I don't know what that is.
He also addressed allegations of defamation and his future quality of life.
Do you feel like your life's been destroyed by this?
I feel my life has been extremely defamed by it. I don't think I would be able to go out and get a job and not have to deal with harassment, but I'm at a place now to where I have to have people with me because people want to kill me just because I defended myself.
More than 5 million people tuning in for that interview. Maura Barrett joins us now live from Wisconsin. So, Maura, we just saw Rittenhouse describe some of the challenges he thinks he'll have to deal with in the wake of this situation. How does he plan to live his life after all of this?
Well, Tom, Rittenhouse says this is a quote, far from the life that he had planned, adding that he wishes it never happened, and he receives all sorts of threats all the time since the trial. As for his next steps, he says he's enrolled to attend Arizona State University in person, and he plans on studying nursing or law. Tom.
All right, Maura Barrett for us tonight. Maura, thank you. Now to top stories, Global Watch, and we begin with the deadly bus crash in Bulgaria. Authorities say a bus packed with tourists from North Macedonia slammed into a barrier and burst into flames. At least 46 people killed, including 12 children. Only 7 passengers survived after they managed to break a window and climb out of the burning bus, both countries declaring 3 days of national mourning. Italy has freed the only person to remain convicted in the killing of Amanda Knox's roommate, Meredith Kircher. Rudy Gaudet served 13 of his 16-year sentence for the slaying of the British exchange student in November of 2007. He has been on probation since last year and maintains his innocence. Knox and her Italian boyfriend were also convicted of her murder, but after a number of appeals and retrials, they were both acquitted in 2015. And an Airbus A340 landed on Antarctica for the first time. New video, check this out, shows the plane touching down on the icy surface after a 2,800-mile, 5-hour trip from Cape Town, South Africa. The cargo jet was chartered by a new luxury travel camp at the South Pole. Only highly specialized crews can fly there due to the challenging conditions. All right, we want to head back to Europe now. Austria is now the first country in Western Europe to reimpose a national lockdown as COVID cases continue to rise there. The government saying they will make vaccinations mandatory in the coming months as their vaccination rates remain one of the lowest in the region. Sky News Europe correspondent Adam Parsons is in Vienna tonight.
The sort of cold and crisp day when Christmas markets feel like a natural place to go. But in Vienna, they are closed, locked down, like the nation. The stall where Maria sells her chestnuts is now shuttered for at least 10 days and maybe 20.
It's so sad, hard, I'm angry, all things. Many people say Corona don't live here. They don't want vaccine, and Many people, they go on the streets and say, no COVID, but you can see in the hospitals.
Austrians have been told to stay at home and to only go out for essential reasons.
It is the best solution to do a lockdown, but of course, I think everybody who is vaccinated is frustrated.
The cause of all this is a sharp rise in COVID cases, a desire to stem a wave that is crashing over the country and much of the continent.
We're certainly concerned with respect to the numbers, and I guess the hard times are still coming. Within the next 2 to 4 weeks, we expect to see the peak levels of hospital admissions, and this will be a hard 2 months. But hopefully, if enough people get vaccinated, from then on, it will be much easier, and we will follow the path of other countries.
But lockdown is a vague word, and the streets are not deserted. There are still a lot of people milling around the heart of this city. Day one of this lockdown feels very different from the lockdowns of last year. And maybe that's because there's still a great swathe of the Austrian population that just doesn't think the government had the right to go ahead with these new restrictions. There have been big protests against this lockdown. A third of people here are not vaccinated, and they expect to face specific restrictions in the future. But even those who have taken the jab are sometimes suspicious.
When we're saying that it's 95% effective at the beginning, we're seeing that's definitely not the case now. We're saying no more lockdowns, yet we're in lockdowns now. How can we really trust the information that's really, being given to us at the moment?
Austria is making vaccination mandatory in the coming months. In the face of another wave of infection, Europe's resolve to battle COVID is taking a tougher edge. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Vienna.
All right, coming up, asteroid mission. NASA preparing to crash a rocket into an asteroid as wide as the world's tallest building. What's behind the planned collision? Next. All right, back now in top story. It sounds like something out of Hollywood, but tonight NASA will attempt to crash a rocket into an asteroid to change its course. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky has more on this historic mission from Houston.
Blowing up an Earth-ending asteroid made the movie Armageddon a smash hit.
This new one you're tracking, how big?
It's the size of Texas, Mr. President.
But tonight, science telling Hollywood, step aside for a mission made for the big screen.
This is the first time SpaceX has taken a NASA spacecraft and intentionally launched it on a trajectory to escape Earth and crash into an asteroid.
Now, this asteroid isn't headed our direction, but NASA scientists want to ram it using a spacecraft that they'll launch atop a Falcon 9 rocket, all to make an impact more than 6.5 million miles away.
What we're trying to learn is how to deflect a threat that would come in.
The goal of the craft, dubbed DART, is intercepting an asteroid called Didymos, as wide as the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and target its secondary body, or moonlet, called Dimorphos, which is still 525 feet wide. Scientists will study the smaller asteroid orbiting the larger Didymos to see how much it changes course when DART hits next fall.
This one is pretty cool, 10 months, and we're going to rendezvous and hit this and impart some English into it.
The agency says they've already mapped the major asteroids, and while none are headed our way, they still want to be ready.
May we all see these events through with the courage worthy of this challenge.
Tonight, all eyes on the mission that could one day save planet Earth.
No pressure there, just trying to save planet Earth. Morgan joins us now from Space Center Houston near NASA's Johnson Center. So Morgan, you mentioned that this asteroid is not a threat to Earth, but what about others out there?
Yeah, Tom, great question. In fact, NASA says that they've already gone ahead and mapped out any asteroids that could pose a potential cataclysmic event here on Earth. Good news there. We're not expected to see anything like that for at least the next 100 years. Their concern here from a scientific standpoint are those smaller space rocks that could potentially cause damage to an entire city. Those are the kinds of asteroids that they're hoping that this test gives them significantly more information about in hopes of preventing a potential Armageddon-like situation here. Tom?
All right, we will look forward to this mission. Morgan, thank you. That does it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Have a great night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.